Warhammer 40k is a tabletop game where people build action figures. I don't know much about the Warhammer lore, but I always appreciated the lengths Warhammer fans went into customizing their figurines. I mean, just look at these guys. They look like they should have an epic hack and slash video game, and that did eventually happen. After a list of other Warhammer games with varying degrees of success, like the Halo clone Fire Warrior, yeah, we don't talk about Fire Warrior. Space Marines released in September of 2011, to mostly positive reviews on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Windows, developed by Relic Entertainment. Relic actually worked on a few other Warhammer games, those belonging to the RTS series Dawn of War. They sadly didn't return in the 2024 release of Space Marine 2 though, because again, they mostly only do RTS games, and their Dawn of War 3, which was released in 2017, was apparently a massive commercial failure. And then they also got sold by Sega in 2024 and became an independent developer, so I'm guessing they will never return to Space Marine. Not even Space Marine 69. For a company that mainly develops RTS games though, they did a really nice job designing the levels for Space Marine, which is a third-person hack and slash, kind of like Gears of War but more epic. The game is very cinematic, especially during combat, when you're blowing enemies up with either a gun or they just turn into a mist of redness when you slash them with your chainsword. I mean, you even got these glory kills, and I mean, just look at it. It's immaculate. Traveling through the ruins of this world is very atmospheric, juxtaposed to yourself, who is an absolute badass to the nth degree. You just see all this destruction around you on this industrial world, and you think to yourself, wow, I am really the only person here that can do shit. You run into these green soldiers all the time, and they're just getting their ass handed to them constantly. It's like, come on, bro. Let's step it up a little bit. I will say though that the environments do get a little bit repetitive, and you can kind of tell how the game is segmented into its chapters. It's not the end of the world, but I did think to myself several times like, oh, I've seen this before, just differently. It's not as bad as like Halo Combat Evolved though, so the cinematics combined with the game world, combined with just the vibes, all culminates into a pretty good looking game from 2011, even in the modern day. I just wish there was an FOV slider. Although I would say that an FOV slider wouldn't really be needed if the game's camera didn't feel like it was constantly fighting against me. The third-person camera is super zoomed in on your Space Marine and gets caught on environmental obstacles constantly. I eventually got used to it, but I can definitely see how it can make some people motion sick. If you're playing on PC, I've found a few mods that can help with this, but I didn't install them because my brain is small, and I didn't want to have to do that just to play a 5-hour game. The combat is the main draw of Space Marine. It feels clunky at times, but you do get used to it. Movement in this game is slow, but you do have a dodge roll, and overall, I would say I felt pretty bulky. I mean, I'm walking around in this Fallout suit of power armor with regenerating shield, kind of like Halo. So, I would hope that I feel awesome. And you can get health bonuses from executions, which are kind of like the ones from Doom 2016, but unlike the ones from Doom, you can die during the animation, which doesn't feel good at all. There is also this Fury mode that grants bonus damage and regenerating health that you can use when your Fury meter fills up through combat. You get upgrades for this power up throughout the game that add stuff like slowing time when you're ADS and a faster charging meter. I mostly just saved it for when I needed to get some health and I couldn't risk going and slapping up an enemy to execute them. Which I think is probably how it's supposed to be used. Although I did try and use it to melee my way through hordes of enemies, which kind of works, but not really. You will die pretty fast, even with the regenerating health, especially in the later levels. And as you can probably tell from the gameplay, the combat is gun and melee based, which feels awesome. There's definitely a level of mastery to this combat that I haven't reached yet, but I'm sure some people have and will. I didn't really need to master the gameplay though, because the game isn't very difficult. although at sometimes it can feel like BS due to you just walking into a room and the enemy placement just being downright evil. But once you know your enemy's position, it basically just comes down to using your available arsenal and knowing how to utilize that arsenal effectively, which I guess is all you can really hope for in a game like this. You can have 4 weapons at a time, not including the melee weapon. These include the bolter, a pistol, and the other 2 being any combination of the plasma gun, melta-gun, laser cannon, vengeance launcher, stalker, or storm bolter. My recommendation would be to use the laser cannon and the melta-gun, but that's up to you. There are also 4 melee weapons: the combat knife, which quickly gets replaced by the chain sword, a chainsaw sword that is probably the coolest design of the melee weapons in this game, a power axe, which is the one that ended up being my favorite melee weapon just because of its utilization, and then there is the thunder hammer. The thunder hammer is really cool in the sections where you get the jetpack. It's awesome. It makes you feel like awesomeness marine. Alright, now we're going to be talking about the story, so skip to this part right here if you just want to hear my final thoughts and don't want to be spoiled on this game that was released in 2011. You have been warned. The Forge planet, Garia, was invaded by orcs due to their overwhelming number. The orcs are absolutely decimating the Imperial Guard, and the Imperial military leaders decide they are going to deploy a group of Space Marines from the Ultramarine chapter to reinforce the Imperial Guard's army and reclaim the planet from the orcs. You're tasked with securing the Forge World's weapon of mass destruction, the Titan, before the orcs can get to it and dismantle it. In the process of doing so, you answer a distress call from Inquisitor Drogon, from whom you learn has a weapon that can actually destroy the orcs. But first, you need to acquire a power reactor located beneath the manufactorium. So you do that. Now you can power the weapon of non-negotiable mass destruction, but oh no, the guy named Drogon, who looks like a drummer in an emo band, is evil. Well, congrats, you basically got rid of the orcs, but now you have to deal with Nimroth and his lust to become an immortal demon prince and his legion of chaos demons and chaos-controlled space marines. Things happen and you eventually defeat Nimroth and you get a cliffhanger epilogue that, to my knowledge, is not referenced in Space Marine 2, which is really sad because I want to know what happened to Captain Titus during the Inquisitor's vetting of him being controlled by chaos energy. In conclusion, I'd say Space Marine is a worthwhile experience given you're into these types of third-person hack-and-slash video games. The story was interesting enough, and it did leave me wanting to know more, but some of the sections that were supposed to be heavy-hitting had me thinking to myself, well, yeah, I could have guessed that was going to happen. But as I said before, the gameplay and the spectacle of it is the real draw here. And while it is short, I think it is a worthwhile purchase on Steam. When it comes to the console versions of this game, that is a different story. Due to some unsavory basement dwellers who can't get no bitches on their penis, it is extremely expensive on console, like $50, $60. So if you can find it on Steam on sale, I would say pick it up, especially if you've played Space Marine 2 and not Space Marine 1. I haven't played Space Marine 2, so I mean, maybe this game is better than that game. I don't know. If you've played both of them, tell me down in the comment section below. But yeah, that's going to be all, fellas. Peace.